Arsenal fans finally got to see what they were missing with Arsenal playing the three midfielders that were expected to start at the start of the season. In this video, we're going to go through exactly why this should be the normal setup for Arsenal in the future and just how much better they are with these guys playing. So let's get into it. Now, when Mikel Merino was signed, he was there to play in that left centre mid role alongside a defensive midfielder and Martin Odegaard. Now, a lot of people still think that he was coming in to replace Thomas Partey long term, which is just simply not the case. They do not play in the same position. And while if Arsenal don't have the ball late on in games, you can move Merino back into a defensive double pivot due to his stature and his height, he isn't really that role. He is more of an attacking player into them half spaces. Now, recently, I actually think Merino has been playing better when he's come on for Arsenal. And I think against Monaco, alongside Declan Rice, who was deeper, and Martin Odegaard, we saw a much more balanced Arsenal and a team that can actually compete consistently, which is obviously nothing against the players that have been playing in midfield who have done a brilliant job. Now, first of all, it's clear to talk about what Arsenal looked like when they had the ball. They had their normal 5-2-3 that we usually see, but in this case, we had Miles Lewis-Skelly invert, so he was actually next to Rice in that defensive double pivot, and Merino and Odegaard operated them half spaces in the attacker line. Now, of course, this is quite fluid, not completely, but Odegaard can come deeper, same with Merino, to pick the ball up and use the fullbacks for overlapping, but we only really saw it on the left because we all know that Thomas Partey is a much more defensive player, isn't going to make them attacking runs in right back. Now, first of all, you can see the average passing networks of the Arsenal team in the first half before it got all funky with players coming on in a second, and it genuinely looks like a much balanced team than we have seen in the past. Now, of course, you still expect Saka to kind of be on his own island, and that is absolutely fair enough. He is our most exciting and best attacker, but having Martin Odegaard a part of that passing network in the attacking space and having Merino come deeper to usually cover for Miles Lewis-Skelly actually makes a lot of sense. And I do think if Arsenal were to play someone like Timber in right back, you would probably see Odegaard also operate a bit deeper to that, as he probably would have to cover for Timber's runs here and now again. Now, I do want to emphasize that obviously Miles Lewis-Skelly was really good on that left hand side, and it did help. It gave Merino a lot of space, and they obviously had a good triangle down there where they actually had enough players to sort of contribute and finally get into them good areas. Now, the first person that really benefited from this was Mikel Merino. Now, it was the reason why he was signed, but in them half spaces, I think especially in that first half, he was very dominant. It was very good as well because when Miles Lewis-Skelly would come on the inside, Merino would act as that main creator down there. Now, he isn't going to be like Martin Odegaard levels of passing, but he is a little bit more of a ball carrier and he is a little bit more physical. And a lot of the times in defense, Monaco were quite inexperienced at dealing with this threat of different underlaps overall and overlaps, because they would go to 2v1 the winger, being Martinelli or Saka, and usually Merino on this side would actually sneak in because the midfielder would not come across and cover. We saw this a few times when Merino got into really good positions inside the box on that side, which not only allow for people like Jesus to be in the box, but it also allows people like Odegaard to get in there and Saka. And I've said this a lot, where you want Saka in the box sometime because he is obviously our most effective attacker. He is our best finisher, and getting him closer to the goal is just going to produce great things. It also helped Arsenal when they were being counter-pressed because he's really good off the ball. Merino is one of the reasons why he was signed, so he would actually come back quite a lot in essential areas and kind of sit in front of Declan Rice. Miles Lewis-Skelly would usually defend out wide at this point, so you don't want to leave Rice by himself. So Merino did well to get back many times and actually just kind of help him winning balls and getting Arsenal back on the counter-attack, and also being very well working with people like Martinelli to win it back for the situation. But the main point is with Merino, it did offer something different. Now, a lot of people have complained about Odegaard's inability to kind of go on a half turn and run. He's a lot more of a passer, which I do think is fair enough. I think sometimes in our systems we need that more running ability in there. Now, Merino does have that ability. He showed it in this game. There was a few times in defense where he would pick the ball up with a defender on him tightly, and he would just go past him and pass the ball through to Martinelli, giving him space where we want it to. Not only that, Merino just works in a way with his ability to use his left foot, because that is his predominant foot, where he can actually work with Martinelli a lot more. And there were so many times he could do inside passes to Martinelli for Marte to actually get the ball in good positions and also counter press to get us up the pitch. And I do think this role very much helped him because he wasn't exactly stuck to that left side. There was a few times he did go down to the right side as well when he picked the ball up from deeper. And what it allowed for was that Odegaard didn't have to keep coming deeper every 3 seconds to pick it up. He could actually stay in an elevated position, which is only going to help us. Obviously, I do think that would have been better if we had someone like Yuri and Timber at right back. However, the reason why this predominantly worked was Rice in the 6th role. Now, we've been wanting him to play there for a while, and he has, every time he's played played this season, I think, been amazing, and in this game it kind of proved it. Arsenal were allowed to use a lot more attacking threats such as Merino and Odegaard to create chances, and even Lewis Skelly at times, because Rice is that anchor and has that brilliant recoverability. In this game he made 8 recoveries overall, which is an incredible amount, and he has the ability to be aggressive in a tackle, even going up the pitch with someone like maybe Merino or Lewis Skelly covering for him, and even if he doesn't win it, he'll be able to get back, but most of the time he does get a foot in there and is brilliant in a tackle, which I do think is something that people need to realise. Now, not only was his ability to decipher attacks from Monaco such a key point of Arsenal's defending in this game, I do think Merino obviously deserves a lot of credit. I think Merino's running as well was brilliant. That leg that we have in midfield is always going to be a benefit, but it's the thing that everyone is talking about. His deep passing in this game was incredible, and I think it finally shows to people that why he should be in that role. Overall, he was Arsenal's main contributor with the ball from deep. I mean, sometimes Lewis Skelly actually had a lot of responsibility as well, but Declan Rice made more passes than Merino. He had more touches than Odegaard. He really did have a lot of impact on this game, and it was his decision and his importance to make line breaking passes, which he made a lot of. There's a few where he made it through the line so people like Odegaard to get into the half space, but there's a few long ones which are really an indicative of how good he can be. His long passing in this game was incredible, and he made 4 out of 4 long passes overall, and a lot of the times when players worked close with him, it gave space to other players in different wings like the left hand side, where he could do a brilliant over the top ball to get Arsenal in a 2v1, and this was just becoming such a good factor for Arsenal, which we haven't really had. Some players that we have are good at long passing, but they're not good from this deep, and it's like that Xhaka that we used to have. He was able to pick passes all over the pitch, and I know there's been talk about him being very good at carrying the ball, so he's in that left hand spot, but he can also do that as well. There was a moment where he picks the ball up under pressure, goes past a player, and still runs into that half channel on the left hand side. This was fine because we had people like Merino back at this point, and even Partey coming a bit more centrally to cover for him going up to them roles. And ultimately, the whole main reason why this works is because of the amount of legs that Arsenal have in midfield, which they haven't had before, and they are finally able to allow themselves to attack in numbers and know that they're going to get back in time. And while Declan Rice can work really well off the ball in space and even on the ball in space running into it, when players are close to him, he does not mind. And on the average positions, you can see Partey and Lewis Skelly were particularly close to him a lot of the times, but it actually made him very much more comfortable and sort of baited players in so he could pass it over the top, which is something Arsenal have been missing on the counter-attack. And overall, this is the system that Arsenal wanted to play. They wanted these 3 midfielders in. Obviously, I think the perfect scenarios is having Timber and Calafiori on both fullbacks, which would make Arsenal so dynamic because they'll be able to go in triangles and underlaps and overlaps, while having people like Declan Rice also cover in different areas. And it is not perfect, like I said. We need the fullbacks in to really get a good idea of how it would work, especially as well Gabriel, I think. And also Odegaard didn't, in my opinion, have a brilliant game. I think obviously him and Saka alone are kind of struggling. I think it's mostly Saka doing it all, and I think even against Fulham, Odegaard wasn't that good. So it's important that we get him higher up the pitch maybe, but he still needs to have a lot of involvement on the game, and when he doesn't, he tends to shoot a lot, which is something we don't really want. So just something to look out for in the future. I think Odegaard needs to be a little bit better. Overall, let me know what you guys think in the comments and who will start against Everton. See you in the next one.